We'll be starting up here in about 3 minutes. And happy Valentine's. We'll be starting up in a couple of minutes. Okay. It's getting near the top of the hour, but we'll give folks about 30 seconds or so to finish logging in on what looks like a beautiful sunny day here in the middle of February, halfway through the month. Hope everybody's got your chocolates, or your flowers, or whatever, or celebrate on a different day, whatever works for you for Valentine's Day. So good morning. Welcome to another one of our foundational webinars. My name is David Orr. I'm the director here with the New York State LTAP Center, the Cornell Local Roads program. And today we're going to be talking about work zones. And I used this title in another talk that I gave as I was building it. I realized, I think this is actually a pretty good one to leave there. It's really good work zones keep everyone safe in a work zone. And so we're going to talk about the fundamentals, the foundational aspects. But obviously, there may be more information that you want to have out there when you're dealing with work zones. Okay. We will be doing some polls. We'll come back to that. We're going to be talking a little bit about the pocket guide and even our workbook. To access those, you can get those in our chat pod that's down at the bottom. And Amanda/Jody will pop that in magically for you. Other than that, the chat pod is disabled. It's just for getting messages to you. We will also email you later on a link to those documents so you don't have to write anything down. We may ask you to raise your hand now and then, so make sure you know where that is. And of course, the Q&A is a great way for interaction. We're going to use that a couple of times during the webinar today. So keep that in mind. If you have anything, just pop them in and we'll help you out. Let's get started. By the way, if you're interested, there is one professional development hour for engineers available for this particular webinar here in New York. It's only the person who is registered who gets that credit. And what happens is at the end of this, we'll send you a certificate of attendance. And if you stay for at least 90%, just miss a few minutes, we'll send you a PDH certificate if you're an engineer. If you're in another state, you'll need to check with your LTAP center, and especially this particular webinar, some of the numbers we're going to talk about are New York specific. So be wary, and I'll mention that when I talk about them, but you'll need to check with the LTAP center in your state. Now to help me out, I see there's a whole bunch of you online today. Thanks for coming on a bright sunny day instead of being outside, but help me out. Let's see who's here and some information. So we'll start with who you work for. And just because of some changes with Poll Everywhere, I threw that into choices at the top. So you got town, county, city or village, contractor, consultant, tribal, state or fed for the weekend. If you can't access the Poll Everywhere, you can go ahead and throw it into the Q&A and I can sort of use that to help clarify things. But okay, so we've got city or village. The site for the poll, you can open up the chat pod, but it's pollev.com/DavidOrPE. Again, they used to show that up on the top. I don't know why they changed that, but it's pollev.com/DavidOrPE. But if you open the chat pod, there'll be a link there. In fact, Amanda, please repost that just because I know that sometimes when you open the chat pod, it doesn't show back up. Okay. Okay, so cool. We got a whole bunch of different variety of folks. That's good to know. A lot of consultants, but a lot of other people too. And 3 people who are honest and work for the weekend. Okay. What is your job? And the choices are you administrator? Are you a superintendent or commissioner, engineer, field crew, supervisor? When I say supervisor, I'm really talking elected officials, the mayor, supervisor, board members. Other board members, just on the board themselves or something else. And if you put in something else, do me a favor, throw in the Q&A what that is. I'm just curious. And we again have a lot of engineers, as I expected, and quite a few highway officials. That's good. And then a variety of other folks. And then we have some people who are putting in highway superintendent or field crew. It looks like, yeah, construction person. Okay. Okay, again, very helpful for me to know. Permit inspectors, okay. Okay, and then 2 more. How long have you been there? Oh, we've got some people less than a month. Wow, okay. At least 1 or maybe 2 people less than a month. That's congratulations, welcome to the job. But a variety of times. Oh, somebody's, I guess they got more experience. They must have crossed over 1 month. Oh, they're back. Okay. Okay, cool. A good variety. And quite a range. Okay. And where are you from? Are you from, where in New York State? If you're outside New York State, put a dot closest to where you're going to be. And we'll see if the person who's on the boat in the lake is still here. A couple out of Ontario. That's cool. Oh, there's the person in the lake. There we go. I will say there's not a lot of highways out there in Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, but okay, we have some New Jersey people on the Q&A and North Syracuse. Okay, we've got quite a variety today. That's cool. Okay, and again, as I said, this is a variety of things, and I think now we're just having a little bit of fun with the dots, but that's okay. These are part of our Why webinar series, or foundational webinars. When you see, we'll usually use the word foundational, but I put in why because really what we're trying to do in each of these is talk about why we're doing things. Really, it's the fundamentals. And so they are valid for folks who aren't in New York, but we will be using New York specific information when we talk about some of the requirements. But some of these are worth professional development hours, things that are technical like work zones and pavement maintenance. Some of them are more managerial, so they don't really fit the criteria New York State requires us to follow. But the key is we're looking at foundational stuff, the basics to get you started. To get more information, you're going to need to go to the full workshop, like in the case of work zones or pavement maintenance, or our stormwater class for erosion and ditches, or you'll need to follow up with things like coming to the highway school or talking with your fellow highway officials about development of employee handbooks and things like that. So today we're going to be talking about work zones. Again, my name is David Orr. I've been here at Cornell for quite a few years, but before that I was with the county. So let's talk a little bit about work zones. And one thing I'd like to make sure, if you don't have one, make sure you get one. It's a little work zone safety pocket guide that we have available. We'll get a link to you so you can download an electronic copy and we can get you a physical copy of it. It's designed to fit in your back pocket or in the glove box of your vehicle. And it's a way to get you started again with the foundations and with the fundamentals. And if you really think about it, when it comes down to it, safety is a pretty important thing. Let's see if the sound works today. Cool. I don't know if they can hear. Can they hear the sound?
But every year, highway and utility workers are injured or killed on the job. That's because drivers aren't careful and don't slow down when they approach work zones. Think about it. How would you like it if someone drove through your workplace at 65 miles an hour? Work zone crews are just doing their job. Let them work. Let them live.
So this is a PSA that was done out of North Carolina, but it illustrates the points to me that are really important. One, if you're in a work zone, whether you're working in the work zone or you're driving through it, somebody's workplace is there. And so if you're in the work zone working, you want to make sure you're safe, just like you want to be safe at work. And if you're driving through the work zone, you want to stay safe. And if you get yourself in trouble, nobody is happy about that. So we want to walk home every single day, all of us. And so good work zones are really important. And they're one of the most important communication tools that we've got. So we'll start with what signs do, because that's really important. They're really important because signs are our primary communication tool. Yeah, markings help, signals help, traffic control devices, to be technical about it, but it comes down to communication. Good communication is really important. Now, these are funny. Somebody actually hot wired one of these little remote work zone signs, and they changed it. Instead of saying the work zone was ahead, it says the end is near and zombies ahead. And of course, we know that doesn't really do the job because it doesn't tell the driver what to do. You know, really, if you're going to do that, you need to say zombies ahead, turn around and go the other way. Give people good, clear directions what they're supposed to do. And good signs are the key. And they communicate. They communicate our regulations, our warnings, and our information, as we've talked about when we've done our sessions on signs and in our sign class, but it's true for work zones as well. But of course, good signs do this. Poor signs, they say that we're too lazy to move a stick. We're got slow children on a dead-end road because the people living there are the ones actually speeding. And of course, we have no idea where we're going. Now we get some of these sent to us and we have a little bit of fun on main signs, but truth be told, work zones have the same issue. Like this is a good example up in the upper left. You've got the lovely little crossbucks on a sidewalk, which is still a construction zone. And the crossbuck says sidewalk closed ahead, cross at crosswalk. But both sidewalks are closed. So where is a pedestrian supposed to go? Do you really want them walking in the street? Or the one on the bottom right, that was the entire work zone for a utility repair. Now, it's an emergency. I know we got to do things sometimes. We don't always do them perfectly. But a single piece of yellow tape across the road at twilight or going into dark probably isn't enough to keep both the driver and the people working safe. So we can do better. But let's just give an example. And this is again, poll everywhere. This is actually a pretty cool feature I like. If you were driving up a road, this is a one-lane road, a flagger has put you into the left lane, one lane is closed and being paved, and you come up towards this intersection, I want you to click on the picture. Where would you go? Yep, you might stop at the little light because you're not sure. You might go to the left. Okay, yep. Yeah, you're not quite sure where to go, are you? Where you're supposed to go is up to the right where that car is up. Let me get my little pin working here. A color that you can see. You're supposed to be. Are you going to work for me or not? You're not going to work for me. So let's try the laser pointer. You're supposed to be up here by the vehicle that's up on the upper right. A couple of you clicked on it. The reason why this doesn't work too well, though, is because if you look carefully at this particular location, the sign was being repurposed, and it says on the backside, road closed. So as you drive up to the intersection, you see a sign that says road closed. You're like, what do I do? Even though you're supposed to have gone around to the right. So something to think about. Good work zones help people drive through them safely. And I love a little humor, but no, this is probably not the right way to communicate to people. Okay, it's not really going to help them too much. And yes, I think this is fake myself. So let's start with who's using a work zone. Who is in a work zone? So you can help me out. Again, here's a poll everywhere thing. Put in who is in the work zone? So give me a list of who's in the work zone. Just one word, and we're going to make a little what they call a work. Pedestrians, workers, staff, inspectors, contractors, yeah. Everyone possibly, yeah. Okay. Motorist. As you can start seeing, we get lots and lots of things in a work zone. Somebody put coffee truck in the work zone. Yeah, okay. But the point is, there's lots of different people in the work zone. And yes, the workers probably do belong as the biggest word in our system because they're the least protected. Pedestrians and bicyclists, we'll talk a little bit about them. They're not well protected either. But again, we got to deal with everybody. So let's talk about the main groups here. We're going to talk about the traveling public a little bit, equipment operators, supervisors, traffic control personnel, and of course, the crews that are not inside the equipment itself. The traveling public, what's their primary goal? Well, they got one goal: get through that work zone quickly. Now, we want them to get through it safely. They're not always thinking that, but they want to get through quickly, and really, they got to get through it safely. You know, if they get into a crash, if they have an incident, they're not going to get through it quickly. So the real purpose for the public is get through quickly and safety. For the operator and the crews themselves, their primary goal: keep working. Don't want to slow down. Okay, don't want to stop working. Well, traffic creates problems. You got to slow down. But do you want to put people in dangerous locations? Supervisors, their primary purpose, can't blame anybody, but let's be honest, get the job done as fast and cheaply as possible. If you actually think about it a little bit, a well-designed, safe, easy to understand work zone actually does the job better than just slapdashing something together, because then people don't know what they're doing and they actually take longer. If you've been in enough work zones, you start noticing that if it's really well done, you can concentrate on the work because you're protected by the traffic control personnel. If you don't quite trust what they're doing and you've got to look for traffic, your productivity goes down. So a good work zone actually helps everybody. And it makes the job of the traffic control operators easier because smoothly operating work zones are easy to manage. Okay. This one I would not put in the category of properly done. The guy might be comfortable, but it's probably not really doing the job. In fact, if you're able to sit down in a chair with a flag beside your vehicle, maybe you could have thought of something else to do for that particular work zone. Nobody wants to be inconvenienced. Nobody wants to be placed in harm's way. And so that's something we do need to think about. And let's concentrate a little bit more on the traveling public. Everybody thinks about cars, and yes, cars are a major issue, but really in a lot of ways, work zones, especially in urban areas like villages and cities or towns as you get into more urbanized areas, really it's the buses and the trucks that are going to control the width of the lanes, any turning movements, all that kind of stuff, fun stuff. And then you've got the people who are not inside of vehicles. You've got bicycles, you've got pedestrians, you've got people who are handicapped. Okay, you got break dancers, I guess is what this is. No break dancing at this particular work zone. But think about that traveling public as we're thinking about work zones. Okay, so in case of cars are moving at pretty quick speed. So you got to give them good signs that they can actually read. Here's some that I took on campus. That sign's a little small, even at 30 miles an hour, which is the speed limit here on campus. That's just hard to read. Really need to think about good communication, good signs. This is even worse. They want you to go down a different exit to get out of this particular parking lot. A handwritten sign taped up with some construction tape, painter's tape? No, probably not good communication. It makes us all look bad when we do things like that. Yeah, there's blown up. Exit via 366. Yeah. In terms of larger vehicles like buses and trucks, think about the turning radiuses. If you put in a work zone with a small detour, is it big enough for the vehicles to actually make the turn? Or do they actually go into the other lane and you can get a chance of a head-on? You really need to think about layout just as if you were going to be there long-term. Even for a short-term daily operation, this is a longer one. And of course, trucks, Sight distance is an issue. Are they backing? Are they construction vehicles? Are they just going through? All kinds of things you got to think about. Bicycles, more and more we're dealing with bicycles, so you need to know where they are, where they might be coming from, whether it's in a more urban area and you get a lot of bicyclists because they just are doing that around schools, or if you're in an area with Mennonites and Amish who bicycle, or people who travel long distance, think about the bikes. And of course, pedestrians are a unique animal all of their own. So that's something to keep in mind completely. In fact, pedestrians can drive you nuts because they do things which just don't make any sense. Okay. And don't of course forget about handicapped individuals. They may have their own unique concerns or needs, and they are part of the work zone as well. Now, here's an example, by the way, with the pedestrians. This is a video we took here on campus. Watch this student. I'm going to start a video here. And watch this student. He just decides he has to go in a particular way. There's just no choice whatsoever, right? He's just going to go. Let me turn off the laser. Watch him walking here. You're going to walk play for me today? You played yesterday and you're not playing today. You're just being, let's just go back and see if you'll play here. There we go. Watch where he goes. Now, first off, he crosses, and now he's in the bike lane. He's in the roadway. Luckily, there's no traffic. And there's a construction vehicle. A guy's got a flag. He's trying to stop the pedestrians from getting in the way. So he's doing his job. And look, he's trying to stop the pedestrian. He slows down, but watch his feet. He never actually stops. So we have to deal with that reality. And sometimes we have to deal with reality that we don't like. So we can only do so much. But think about keeping people safe when you're looking at a work zone. What are the priorities and what else could you do? Sometimes not a lot, but let's keep that in mind. Now, what are the regulations? Well, they come from the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. I've heard it called MUTCD and MUCTD and all kinds of different names, but essentially it's a sign manual. Okay, it's also got signals and markings and stuff. And of course, in New York State, we also have a supplement to the national MUTCD, and we could have a whole session. In fact, we've had a whole session on signs talking about that, but work zones do come from that. New York State does apply some additional things at the DOT that are followed by local agencies, but the idea is that the standards apply to all roads. So even if you're working on a private road doing work zones, you still want to be thinking about the same things. Think about how people are getting through the work zone, what is going to be safe. So is this MUTCD compliant? I mean, this is the work zone and there's the sign that says sharp bend. Okay. You know, I like that one, don't you? Yeah. So what would you do if you saw something like that? Okay, I've activated this on Poll Everywhere, and I'll go back and show you the picture so you can start typing in your answers. What would you do? And we'll go look at what you would do instead. Again, if you can't access Poll Everywhere, you can always put it into the Q&A. So you would turn left, okay? Yeah, people, you'd slow down. You'd like, what the heck is going on? You'd slow down, okay? You turn left, okay? So most of you would turn left. You hope they gave some advance warning. They did not in this particular one many years ago. They did a better job the last time they worked on this bridge. Yeah. The problem is, remember, as developing a work zone, you've got to communicate to the driver what they're supposed to do. Okay? So yeah, we got to turn, but really we got to do better than this. A sharp bend, is it left, is it right? At night, if the markings were down and diminished and there's not good lighting for some reason, you might not have any idea what you're supposed to do. That's not really the proper signage at all. Oh, by the way, it looks nice and bright, but the reality is that sign's not retroreflective. At night, it actually barely shows up when you hit it with a light. It's just plastic. Okay, so it's really not doing the job. What really should have been done here is proper chevrons or arrows, an advanced sign. Technically, it should have been orange and black, but I'll be honest with you, if you got in stock a yellow and black sign and can give good advance notice that you got to make a sharp turn, you should do so. Give people good information. The same standards are true for work zones as they are for any other traffic control device. And in terms of work zone warning signs, yeah, they're supposed to be black on orange. With a few exceptions, especially the diamonds, generally they're going to be 36 inches in size. Bigger is better. That's why we have pretty big signs. We don't want them too small, and we want them at least a foot off the ground. Okay, so they don't get buried, they don't get lost, they're easier to see. And if they're permanent, we actually should think about mounting them higher up. So if it's a work zone that's going to be just more than a day, really think about putting some signs up just like you would with standard signs. They need to be retroreflective. And people go, well, yeah, but we're only working during the day. Buy ones that are reflective so you can see them at night, because you and I both know there's emergencies. And of course, we do have December and January where it gets dark pretty early and it gets light pretty late. So really go ahead and get retroreflective signage, and then you can use that for your advance warning. And if I had to pick the one thing that frustrates me the most with a lot of work zones, is that the signs stay up forever. So please remove them, turn them, cover them when they're not needed. Absolutely critical. Okay, so these are the things with work zones, as opposed to this. This is an entire work zone. One little barrel with a plastic hand painted with pink paint bump sign. It's not a good advance notice. It really doesn't do the job that you want it to do. If you need to warn people, warn them with consistent signage. MUTCD or MUCTIC or whatever you want to call it, the word that is really important is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So everybody should see the same sign in the same way, and good, clear, consistent message. Make sure, by the way, everybody working in the work zone has on the proper safety apparel, a vest. Okay, that can be seen at night. Type 2 minimum, type 3 in certain cases. And that includes, by the way, the fire police. That includes police when they're not doing police activities, if they're doing traffic control kinds of things or accident investigations. Put on the vest. Partly because it's easier to be seen at night. Obviously, these folks are much easier to see. You can see they're actually workers. Some cases these days they actually probably should have had on more, so the type 3 more reflective. You can see the legs and arms, but again, even a vest really helps. But even during the day, it makes a difference. So how many workers can you see? Watch carefully. Did you see 5? How many of you saw 5? In just a few seconds. Yeah, there's actually 5 workers there. Okay. There are 3 people doing accident investigation, wearing vests from the DOT and construction company, and there's 2 police officers who are going, but we carry a gun. No, you need to put the vest on. It really does make a big difference. Okay. It also helps break up other things. I actually am a big fan of wearing different colors in the orange cones because you can get lost. How many people on the right? I'm going to talk that back. How many people on the right? Nobody even wants to put an answer in? 6? Yeah, 6, 7. I got 6 in the Q&A. 5, 6. There are actually 6 workers there. 4 wearing orange. A supervisor wearing gray hasn't put his vest on. It's underneath his arm. And then 1 person wearing lime green who actually stands out. A lot easier to see. He doesn't get lost in all of the orange. So again, think about conspicuity, different colors, all kinds of fun stuff. Okay. Now, we'll come back a little bit more about where flaggers should be standing and all that, but it's a very important thing. I really want good flaggers. Flaggers to me are one of the most critical things we should have in a good work zone, and yet way too often we see flaggers that just make us a little bit shaky. The poll page seems to be frozen. Okay, we get to the next poll, I'll check it out. Okay, when we get to the next poll, I promise you we'll check it out. I got a trick I may have to do. But flaggers must be alert, watching the traffic. They need to be visible. Don't put them right around everybody else. They really need to be a little bit motivated. They need to be thinking they're a flagger. Way too often we stick that person that doesn't really want to be doing anything out there and they're not paying attention. And yet they're our primary communication tool and they're the primary person that helps keep all of us safe when we're working in a work zone. You need to train them. Doesn't take long, but a little training goes a long way. And don't just train them for the simple stuff. Train them to deal with the emergency. Train them to deal with something that's odd that happens. A little practice ahead of time can make a big difference, okay? Now, to do their job right, they got to be standing alone, okay? They can't be standing in with everything else. They'll get lost, like we saw in that picture. They got to be facing traffic. And I know people will argue, but do not stand in the travel lane. Absolutely bad idea, but you see it all the time. If a vehicle doesn't stop and you're standing in the travel lane, like this gentleman here, that's not going to be a good day for that flagger. We've talked about in the traffic safety foundational webinars, the chances of you walking away from a crash, if you're hit at 40 miles an hour, are less than 2%. The chances of it being fatal is over 90%. Okay, so no matter what, you're going to have a really bad day if you get hit with any speed. And that's just with a car. That truck hits you, you're dead. So don't be standing in the lane. And they go, but yeah, but they'll go by me. Well, there's other things we can do. We can set up proper cones. We can set up proper station. But stand in a place where you can be safe. If you read crash reports for flaggers who were killed, most common reason, they were standing in the lane and they were struck by traffic. Okay, so don't be doing that. I mean, here's this lovely guy. He's got the stop paddle. I pull up in front of him. I take his picture. I creeped 10 feet forward. I took his picture again. I creeped 10 feet forward. I took his picture one more time. Then I put the phone down and kept creeping forward until he told me I was number one. Now, I was about 40 feet away when I did that, but he never turned around. He was on his cell phone. Okay. If I hadn't stopped, well, it'd been a bad day for him. So don't be standing in a place where if somebody does mess up, they are texting on their phone, they're not paying attention, you could get killed or your flagger could get killed, okay? And in terms of equipment, obviously the paddle is the proper device to be using. They got to have a vest like everybody else. It has the side panels, a hard hat if it's required, but even then, some kind of hat as a communication tool is very useful. And then of course, attire for the day. That includes, weather attire if it's going to be raining, cold weather, hot weather, dressed for the day, okay? Some kind of whistle or horn to tell the workers, an idiot just went by me coming into the work zone. And of course, they usually are responsible for their flagger ahead sign. They turn it when it's not in use and they put it up when they're ready to work. There are different ways we do things. We have 1 and 2 flagger operations. These are in that little pocket guide that we're going to share with you later on. The temptation is to use 1 flagger. We really, we'll save money by having 1 flagger. But if you save money by having only 1 flagger and there's a crash, well, did you really save anything? Okay, so don't use 1 flagger when you really need to. If you've got traffic above 400 vehicles a day going down that roadway, really want to be doing 2 flaggers. I know, we don't have the money, but you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And the other thing is, if the work zone is too long, you can't really do it with 1 flagger. Because to be doing it correctly with a 1 flagger operation, you need to be able to walk from one end of the work zone back and forth to control that traffic. So if it's too long, can you really reasonably do that and control the traffic? 1 flagger should not be standing still. They actually need to be moving. We show in the chart as if they were standing still, but the reality is they need to be walking, they need to be moving, okay? So 2 flagger is almost always preferred unless it's pretty low volume and low speed, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, most of the time we use a paddle. There are some times when we have to use the old flags, which should actually be red. When you get to an intersection where it can be very hard, the paddles just don't quite give good information to the public. But think about who's in charge, how are you going to control traffic, and how are you going to let traffic through when you get an intersection kind of situation. So keep that in mind. Flagging is not always a cut and dry. Think about how you're going to move traffic through and how are you going to deal with something if an incident does occur for getting construction vehicles in and out. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about preparing a traffic control plan. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you should always have a plan. Okay. Now, Eisenhower's right. Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And you got to start with a plan and you can always modify it, but you got to have the right signs. And yes, this was one that somebody placed in Tennessee about 30 years ago. Doesn't really tell the public what they're supposed to do. Slow down, but by how much? And slow down or what? So now, traffic control plans, you do need to do a specific one for each work zone. You can't just use a generic. And even though in the pocket guides, and I forgot to grab mine. In the pocket guides, you have to have a specific, it's a generic one, but start with that and then work from there. Okay. One of the most important things in a good traffic control plan is give advance notice. Okay. Give advance notice to the traveling public to give them time to get ready to enter the work zone. This allows for error, inattention, someone on their cell phone, someone drinking their cup of coffee. Absolutely vital that we take advantage of that fact. Okay, so we'll start with our little pocket guide, but we're going to go from there and make it specific for dealing with that particular site. A good traffic control plan moves traffic away from the hazards, moves traffic away from any of the workers. Okay, gives nice, clear directions, tells the drivers what to do. Okay. Now, you need documentation from a liability standpoint, but you also need documentation because then you can think that whole work zone through. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and let's just see here if the poll is working now. Let me just see here. See if you guys can put in, and I can actually try myself. Let's see if poll EV will work. Again, I know this trick sometimes works for me. Up, they are working again. Good. So you need to have plans. You need to have what signs you're going to use. Yep. What's the layout? The weather. That's actually a really important one. You want to make sure the weather is part of your documentation because that actually might change where you put your signs and might come back up later. Is there any lighting? What time of day? Yeah. So you're starting to think about all the documentation. Okay. So keep thinking about it. Yeah, you may even want to include there how the construction site is going to work. How are you going to bring your trucks on site? Like the video we saw with the pedestrian. How do you bring the vehicles in and out of the site so you don't confuse the public? Okay, so think about all the things you want to document. But again, keep it simple. I'd rather have a simple plan that people follow than a complicated one that nobody really understands. So let's keep it simple. Now, what's my list of documentation? I want the starting and ending time of the work. That's then related to the day. Okay. Where is the work? I mean, yeah, that sounds like we all know that, but is it at the intersection? Is it just a little bit off? Some pictures, by the way, can go a long ways. You can always add pictures in later on. And then, of course, the type, condition, and position of the traffic control devices. And again, take a picture, and every one of us has a phone now. Okay, we can take a picture with our cell phone afterwards, and we got documentation. But write things down like who's on the job, what equipment is being used. Okay, so these are all important things. If you're not using a specific device, write down the differences. If you change the speed limit for the day, write that down as well. Okay, so write down what you need to do. Okay, now how can I make this job simple? Well, I got a couple of ways to do it. Okay, first thing is the little pocket guide, and as they say, we're going to send you a link to it. If you have access problems getting the box, we can help get a copy to you, and we can get you a physical copy of the Work Zone Safety Pocket Guide. And I'll show you a quick way to use that guide to make a very simple, quick traffic control plan. Works like a charm, okay? Now, inside the little pocket guide, you'll see a little thing that talks about the buffer area, the advanced warning area, the 5 parts of a good work zone, okay? It's pretty important to have those 5 parts of the work zone, and they each have their portion. So let's talk about those 5 parts of a work zone and why they're important. The first one is the advanced warning area. This is where we put in the 3 signs in advance of the work zone to give people a general warning of what's coming. We give them a specific warning of, like, they have to maybe change lanes, or there's going to be a flagger. And then we give specific instructions that you got to stop or something like that. So the most common one is the 2 flagger operation, where we have the general warning, hey, there's road work ahead. Or you might see the symbol sign. Technically, we're supposed to use the road work ahead, but if you got the symbol worker sign, great. Okay, use what you've got and then upgrade. 1-lane road. We all know 1-lane road means 2-lane road. One's closed. I might have to stop. And then we tell people we're stopping you with a flagger. So it's a flagger ahead. If you're stopping them with a traffic light, you would use a traffic light symbol. If one of these little AFDs, these automatic flagging devices. So the idea is you give people advanced signs to slow them down, and it improves their chances of reacting properly. Okay. Now, as they get up to the work zone itself, there's a transition area. Normally, that transition area should just be a set of cones across the road, almost acting like a little bit of a barrier. So people, if they drive past it, hit the cones and properly, hopefully, slow down or stop. We should not be standing in that zone. We should be standing with our flagger at the end of the advanced area, off to the side with a place to go. This particular flagger, if somebody goes through, they've got no good place to go. If they try to go off the road, they're going to run into their own truck. If they try to cross, they're going into traffic. Really not a good place to be. A transition area is just a small area to give people a chance of moving across. Here's a buffer area. Again, guys in the lane, but you can actually see some cones. Bigger problem I've got here is not only is he in the roadway, but there's no distance between the flagger and the work itself. You really want to have a buffer. Now, buffer lengths vary depending on the speed, and they're listed in the little pocket guide, but you want to give buffer. And why is the buffer important? Well, this is a video. This is from an interstate, and I think it's Virginia. I've been trying to research. I've had the video for a while, and I'm trying to figure out what interstate it's on. But watch the vehicle when it gets hit into the crash vehicle. Now, there's no brakes on the crash vehicle at first. You leave without the brakes, and then you apply the brakes. So it's more almost like a stopping sight distance thing. Notice how far they went after they got hit. Everybody walked away. Okay. Yeah, there was some minor injuries, but nothing major. Think about the amount of energy to move a truck with an attenuator on the back when you get hit at high speed. So that buffer length is pretty important. That also means, by the way, that if you put a buffer length in, with no vehicles in it, no work in it, no construction materials, and no, I'm showing up on the job site to act as the engineer or the supervisor, and I'm going to pull into this nice empty spot. No. It's a buffer space for a reason. And one of the things I really recommend folks do is put cones. You've got the transition cones at one end, put other cones at the other end, or even in the middle, to help people realize that it's a buffer, and it also could hopefully help somebody who does drive through, hits the cones and slows them down. So buffers are really important, okay? Now, in a low speed situation, those buffers can be pretty short, in some cases down in the 100-foot range. But again, think about the vehicle speed and how much time people need to stop. Good advanced signage will help you here, but buffers are important. There's the work area itself. We really want to mark that off. We want to let people know, do not bring your vehicle into here, okay? And again, if you're flagging this with one flagger, the flagger actually should be on the other side of the roadway. And in this case, the traffic volume is too great, but really, you want to think about a good work zone. It's properly delineated with cones and barrels so people know work, drivers, work, pedestrians and bicycles, things like that. If this flagger has to step back one step at all, that guy doing the work on the catch basin is going to have a really bad day. In fact, it could be both of them having a really bad day. And of course, as a supervisor, you're going to have a bad day as well as you fill out paperwork. Okay. I know you all love paperwork so much. And then finally, there's a termination area. Now, the termination area doesn't always get signed. We sometimes will put up a sign that says in road work. Sometimes we have a bunch of cones to let people know. Again, think about how you're getting the materials and vehicles in and out. A lot of times we leave it open to get the construction vehicles in, but don't confuse the public and make them think they can come into the work zone. So even a couple of cones sometimes can help in that particular case. Now, how far apart are those advanced signs? Well, in an urban area, New York State actually has slightly different distances than the national MUTCD. I actually like the variety we get here. It's anywhere from 100 to 350 feet, depending on the speed limit. And in a rural area, it's supposed to be 500 feet. Okay, nice, simple number. Technically, we would probably use the 495 or the numbers that would come up with stopping site distances, but we round it to the closest 50-foot interval. So it becomes 500 feet. Essentially, high speed, give people about 1,500 feet to react, slow down. Urban area, you don't have to have as much time. Easiest way to think about it. And again, the first sign warns is work. The second says what has changed. And the third, what action is going to be taken. Flagger, lane closed, move left, move right, things like that. Okay. And you may need to move them. I mean, there's no requirement that says they have to be exactly those distances. Those are minimums. You can always go further. You can always tuck things in, but make sure they can be seen. And then you put up your first sign, you're not in the road yet. You put up your second sign, you're not in the road yet. You put up your third sign, you're not in the road yet. You put the flaggers in position. The flaggers actually go in position next. Then you put up your cones to delineate the work zone. But you've got your flaggers already stopping traffic, so that those putting the cones in already have those flaggers helping protect and slow things down. And then, of course, to remove it, you remove the entire work zone. You now actually have two open lanes, and then you remove all of the flagging and sign stuff at the end. So it goes backwards. Okay. Pretty important, critical point. And the other thing, though, is do me a favor. When you're not working, hide, cover, and turn your signs. Now, do you need to cover and hide all of them? I'm actually okay if you left the work zone sign up during the day. You're working, you've moved everything off, the two lanes are open, but you still got a lot of equipment and vehicles. Leave the first one up. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But what you want to think about is taking the second and third signs and turning them. Just turn them 90 degrees. It actually gives the public good information because they see there's a work zone sign, but the rest are turned. There's still people here. I got to pay attention, but they're not actually working in the lane. And by doing that, we give a better job of communicating. But if you come across a sign that says flagger ahead and there's no flagger, what do you do the next time you see a flagger ahead sign? Yeah, you keep driving. So cover those signs when they're not needed, turn them, put them down, whatever technique works, make sure the public doesn't get confused. Okay, so here's our lovely work zone. We've got our road work ahead, we've got our one-lane road, and we've got our flagger symbol. Long as there's work and cones, you need people manning that flagger station, they need to be working. But if you want to move everybody out during lunch, take a break, that's fine. Okay, but then you could turn the flagger symbol sign. The pin has decided to stop working. Well, we'll live without it. It's working somewhat, but not enough. Let's try this one more time. I'm stopping. There we go. So turn the flagger symbol, turn the one-lane road. Again, I'm okay if you left the road working, if you're still going to be right back to working, but take down the signs you don't need. I'd rather take them down than leave them up. Okay. And again, the pocket guide will show it as if it were straight. The real world might be curved, things like that. Now, we like to say 3 signs are important, and they are, especially in in high speed and rural areas, absolutely critical, given those 3 signs. There are times when you can get away with 2. Maybe you've only got the space for 2 signs. Okay. So in that case, you still want that first sign almost always is work zone ahead. And then your second one, again, it might be the flagger symbol that might be telling people what to do. But think about, what do you really need to do? Okay, so what's the public need? What do the workers need? Keep everybody safe. So we're going to prepare a traffic control plan. Now here we've got our scenario that we just talked about with the flagger. Okay, we know there's some issues with that. So what I want to do is I want to do a better job in this particular case. We're going to be repairing a catch basin on the roadway with well over 1,000 vehicles a day. It's quite busy. Okay, so which scenario is best? If I'm working on a catch basin on this roadway right here, okay, do I have a lane closure on a minor urban street? Do I have a lane closure low volume road? Or do I have a lane closure on a 2-lane road? Okay, somebody in the Q&A, tell me which of those 3 scenarios you think is best. Yeah, it's a 2-lane. It's clearly a 2-lane. Don't go down the temptation. Oh, we can get away with 1 flagger. Don't use the temptation. Oh, well, it's a minor urban street, because it might be minor compared to maybe the state highway. Anytime you've got traffic volume above 400 vehicles, start thinking about 2 flaggers. And anytime you got speeds up above 30 miles an hour, you really want 2 flaggers for reaction time. So yeah, I know we all do it. I know we all do 1 flagger situations, but really, please think about 2. And if you are doing 1, make sure you do it well. Now, in terms of how you could do a particular scenario, I made a copy. This is not this particular site, but I want to show you a cheap way to make a traffic control plan. Okay, so in this particular case with utility work, the one you saw earlier, like you saw where it was just 2 signs, low volume, residential street, piece of cake. Well, what you do is you take your little pocket guide, you open the pocket guide up, you find the scenario that is the most applicable for your particular situation. You walk over to your copy machine, you drop the thing in your copy machine, and you hit copy. Half your page now has the work zone. You cross out and change the actual signs you're going to use. You write down the crew, the work that's being done. In this case, it was a water main repair, the date. You're done. You would now have a traffic control plan. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. People want to do really complicated plans, and you do need them on long-term detours, on the interstate system, on arterials. Absolutely. Get an engineer involved, do a really good job. But for minor work in a rural area that's low traffic, or an urban area like a village, backstreet, residential, keep it simple, but follow through and make sure you document what you did. Okay, that's all you got to do. And again, same thing, starting and ending time, location of work, type and condition, personnel, equipment used, change in regulatory devices, or even warning devices. Take a picture of the signs when you're done. Now, we do have an app called WorkZone NYS. It hasn't been updated in a while, and so you can't download it easily right now. The Apple version is, I still think, downloadable, but it has issues. It was originally paid for with money from the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee. We are updating it. Okay, we have a draft version up. It's available on Google, but we still need to beta test it. We're just beta testing it right now. It'll be up soon, and as soon as it's available, we'll let everybody know. So we'll put that into our road chatter. We'll put that into different things. But there will be an app available. And the nice thing about the app when we get it working is it'll actually have the plan in it, and it'll email it to you. So you've got your documentation that you could use. So you could actually build everything inside the app. Now, why are work zones important? Let's just finish our discussion today talking about that. Just to remind us why we're doing work zones and why we want to have good quality work zones. Well, primary purpose is we want to protect ourselves, the traveling public, our coworkers. We all want to get home every single day. As Phil Spezio did when he talked about worker safety, this is why we want good work zones. Okay, this is a picture that my grandpa built the plane. That's my mom and my grandmother. And think about your family. Think about your spouse. Think about your significant others, your family, your children. Think about your coworkers. That's why signs are important. Think about why this is not a good sign. Okay, so in the Q&A, why is this not a good sign? If you saw this, what's wrong with this particular sign? Why is this not a good sign? It's a distraction. It doesn't really tell you what to do. Okay, yeah, it's just a distraction. And while this is somebody took one over, we've seen things like that with this sign that's up on the side of the road. They've spent the money on it. It just says slow down. There's no information helping the public understand. I need to slow down because there's a closed lane. I'm going to have to change lanes. Give good information. Just like permanent signage, work zone signage falls in the same category. Okay. All signs should be reflective. Is that true? Should all work zone signs be retroreflective? Yes or no? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yes, most of our work is during the day, but those signs at night make a big difference. And actually, even during the day, if it's a gray, cloudy day, and we get a few of them here in New York State, your traffic light headlights are on, it actually can help you see that sign. So yeah, just go ahead and make sure your signs are retroreflective. It's not required, but it's not a bad idea. And if you ever have a situation with a work zone at night, you'll be glad you had them, because at night you do need them. Okay, think about the same rules they use for traffic, turning on your lights. Your lights have to be on half an hour before the sun goes down and half an hour after it comes up. Your retroreflective signs should be there at the same time if you're working. And yes, any cones, I'd put the stripes on the cones as well. I think that's a good thing. Okay. So where should this flagger be standing? By the way, if we don't currently, we're just doing this via the Q&A. We're answering this. Yeah, it should be out of the lane, off the road. Yeah. What's the proper color for work zone signs? Everybody remember? Most colors. There's a few exceptions, but 99% of the time. What color? Yeah, orange with black. Orange with black. Okay. And the reason is because then the public knows, hey, that's a work zone. It's orange. The shape and the lettering and stuff help those who are colorblind, but we want orange and black for a variety of reasons. Okay. And then who should wear high-vis clothing in a work zone? This should be a pretty easy one. Everybody, yeah. It's required. Everybody in a right-of-way who's doing work that's not police activities, direct fire activities, controlling traffic, you need to have on that safety vest. You need to have on that bright jacket. Heck, I gave my wife a safety vest for Christmas. I just recently bought her fourth one. She keeps wearing them out. She wears them walking. As opposed to this guy, he could probably use something. He's going to get sunburned. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You really should have better clothing. And then in terms of minimum spacing, I won't make you answer this one because, well, it's in the pocket guide, but 100 feet is the minimum. If you don't remember, it's 100 feet between the signs. You're going to have to adjust. The real world is not perfect. We know that. But this one you should remember. What's the minimum height on a sign? What's the minimum height? Yeah, a foot. If it's stuck in the ground, it can be lost. It can be hard to see. And it makes us look like, yeah, man, we're too lazy to even get a good 1 foot off the ground. Really want good height. Helps a lot. And then, of course, what are the 5 parts of the work zone? Everybody knows the 5 parts of the work zone. Let's see if y'all can get the 5 parts of the work zone. There's a buffer space. We got one. Okay. We got buffer space. We got determination, advance warning, transition, the work area. Very good. Nice job. You got them all. Okay. Give people advance notice, set up a transition, have a buffer space, do your work, and then terminate. And if it's not obvious, maybe help with some extra signs. Okay. So I'm going to end with just a couple, we have enough time. I'm going to give you a couple of pictures of things I've come across. I want you to just tell me in the Q&A, what are your options? If you wanted to work on this sidewalk, for instance, what are some options? And by the way, there is no sidewalk on the right side in this case. It's only sidewalk on one side. What would you do in this particular case? What are your options? You might have to do a temporary pedestrian pathway. You might have to do a cone walkway. And you might even have to think about transitioning for access for those who are in a wheelchair or have to use a walker. So you can't just drop them off the curb. Okay. So you need to think about that. And are there other alternatives that you could have used to make that job easier? Even if it's a little bit longer than you might like, the where I'm standing is actually a crossing that's a raised crossing. You could actually bring people there. They'd have to walk a little further, but if you coned it properly, you might be okay. Again, depending on how long it's going to be. How about this one? Here they put up a detour. They actually put in some chips on the ground so people could walk, and it's not great for rolling, but it'd be okay for a short term. But I think we don't have enough space between where we put people and where the work is being done. Think about separation, whether it's pedestrians or cars. Okay. Now this is a picture that Al Bachner, who I think Al, I saw you here earlier on. Let's go up and see. Yeah, Al's on here. This is a picture that Al had. They're doing paving in a residential area. What are some options? I'll show you the pictures that Al had so I can tell you what Al would recommend. I like Al's recommendation, but what could you do here? You could make people go over a block, close it off completely. Yeah. Or maybe that was the one before, but okay. But yeah, you might be able to do an offsite detour. Now, if you're doing an offsite detour in a residential area, absolutely critical that you tell everybody in the area, hey, we're closing it for the day. You need to get your vehicles out, work with people, okay? Give them advance notice, use reverse 911 to alert them, today's the day we're paving. So you then all of a sudden realize, hey, I got to get to the hospital and my car is in the driveway. So make sure you communicate that well. But yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job here. I like that idea, Al. Just close it off if you can. Not always possible. But when you think about good work zones, think about the users, think about alternatives. And again, we all want to go home at the end of the day, and a good, safe work zone keeps everybody safer. Okay. And there may not be a perfect solution, but think how complicated it could get. And worst case scenario, somebody gets hurt or worse. We don't want that. We want everybody to get home every single day. And with that, I thank you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to send them to me at david.orr@cornell.edu or clrp@cornell.edu or go on our website. And if you like today's webinar, it's recorded, it'll be on the web, or old ones are as well. Here are the next 4, and then we're going to be going out and doing our in-person workshop starting after March 14th. Okay. So everybody have yourself a great day. Get out. Looks like a beautiful sunny day. I might even crack the window later once it warms up. Take care, and we'll see you on the web or in person. Bye-bye.